Hey, welcome to another episode of Your Worst Song. I'm Alex Southey. This was one of the funniest conversations so far, I think, on the podcast. Julie and I have been friends for a little while. Longer than a little while in the grand scheme of things. We've known each other for a few years, and this is at times really funny conversation, and at times really serious and affecting conversation where I guess I should add a trigger warning actually. We discuss uh, eating disorders and some other, behaviors, I guess, that require a trigger warning. So, yeah, anybody who thinks maybe they're not in the right headspace to handle something like that, maybe save this for another time or avoid it. Uh, but overall, very funny episode. Julie was incredibly giving, talking about her music and her career. And one of the most interesting and relevant parts, I think, for a lot of listeners will be how she's able to make a living in Toronto as a musician. Like, she doesn't do much else. She's just using her musical talents to live in a major city in Canada and North America. I think that alone warrants some questions and research. So that's what I've done. I'm Alex Southey, and this is Your Worst Song. Yeah, it's all good. Should we start?
Okay, I'll start.
Okay, great. Okay, Julie, it's great to talk to you.
You
Uh,
too.
yeah, great to finally catch up. How you just recently played the what the hell is it called? You know what I'm
Unplugged
referring to?
North.
Unplugged. I was about to say underground, but yeah,
Yeah.
Unplugged North. How was that?
It was really fun. Patrick Bateman was hosting, and he's a really cool guy. And it was
He is the host for I forget the name of the show, but it's
for
or
North
North
Americana.
Americana, yeah,
Americana.
or Arcana, and
Anna.
on Sirius XM.
But that's the show I've been really lucky to have like a couple of my songs on over the years.
Yeah,
And I
same here.
love Sirius Radio. Like it's the exact opposite of Spotify in every
Yes,
way. So I
yes.
love any show that's like supporting radio and about radio. So yeah, it was awesome.
And Sirius actually pays money,
It
unlike
pays, it's the only
Spotify.
like real money I make off my own
Yes,
music. So
exactly.
the
It's
biggest thing I
basically
tell any
satellite.
artist, exactly, like anyone who doesn't know, I'm like, you need to be submitting every song on that little self-submit page. It's so
E-
important.
Exactly. It's definitely, and it's fairly easy. Like there
It's
really is
super
just a
easy.
submit form, and it's like 8 questions.
Yes, like everyone should be doing that. And then obviously,
Totally.
yeah, if anyone's listening, get on Sound Exchange and then you're good.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. We've talked a lot about this, like back end stuff and how to make it work. Maybe that's an interesting place to start. As obviously
Mm.
we're gonna get the context for your career or whatever, but one thing that's notable about you is I feel like as much as you do play live stuff, you're a musician who also like you're singing for hire in some cases or on
Yeah.
or you're doing commercial type stuff. Like, do you want to talk a bit about doing these multiple musical things to be able to make a living as a musician?
Sure. Yeah, that's been so important to me because it just helps me stay, I guess, away from day jobs, which I find really suck the life out of me. I've tried
Yeah.
so many different things, but I find having the freelance lifestyle just gives me the freedom that I need. Even if there's little structured, contract work I do in between. Um, I find that without that, I really struggle to have that space to write and record.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I started gigging in wedding and event bands when I was like 21 or 22 because I had a pal that was in that world already. I was in my undergrad at U of T
Okay.
and just trying to make money on the side. My last job was working at like a fucking Starbucks. And so I started in the gigging world. And I will say it was really good as a young musician. I was playing a little bit of my original stuff live around
Mm.
then, like tiny little bars, but it was really good for getting my live chops up because I went from being like not super experienced with, stage performance at that level to doing, like 3 4 hour sets, and okay, Celine Dion's on the list and ACDC's on the list, and make it work and keep your. So yeah, I got like really really strong vocally from that. And then yeah, just like word of mouth over the years, I worked with different bands. I worked with the Digs, I've worked with Soul Power, I worked with my friend's band Next Level Entertainment. So being able to pop on for gigs like that is really helpful. And then the commercial work is fantastic. I landed in that around 2016, I want to say.
Hmm.
And it was through some connections that I actually made through creative work, through songwriting I was doing. And a friend of the musician I was working with, they'd been in a band earlier, but he was now creative directing a commercial audio studio.
Mm.
And so they heard me sing a few times and they said, "Hey, why don't you jump on this? I feel like you're, pretty flexible vocally." And so yeah, I started jumping on these commercial jobs, and I just found it was um just a really great niche for me
Hmm.
because uh first of all, it's like really fun and it can be really silly. But second of all, you get to adapt your voice to so many different styles.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something I really love doing, but I don't necessarily get to in my creative work because I
Right,
tend to write
right.
folk or this or that. But it's like I love singing R&B. I
Yeah,
love
that's
singing
interesting.
80s love songs or ballads and whatever. So yeah.
Is there any genre that you have been thrown into where you were like, wow, I really never expected to be singing Caribbean dance hall or something, you know?
Oh my God, you want to puke? So I had to do a weird pop thing for New York fries. I've done like two New York fries ads. Oh my God, I don't want to like talk badly about it, but I don't know what the concept was, but it was like talk, singing, pop, boo, the real, eat the pork, eat the cheese, like just literally talk singing, and they put like a heavy auto tune. That was definitely outside my comfort zone. The
Wow,
one
that's
thing I'll
wild.
yeah, because I was like, guys, I do everything, but I will not rap. No one wants to hear me rap. I think I'm a fucking idiot. But that was the closest to it.
Yeah.
But the most fun is when I get thrown into R&B because that's like truly, I just love singing R&B. So
And
I'm always
and
like,
it's like singing it emphasizes singing over some other genres that might emphasize songwriting or something like that. I'm
exactly,
generalizing. I'm generalizing, but yeah.
of course. But yeah, it's like those little licks I might put in there, little
Exactly.
riffs I do. I wouldn't necessarily put in a folk song.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Like we grew up in the same era, so we had Brandy and Monica on the radio, and
Yep, yep.
Casey and JoJo, and so that was such a formative part of me, like in a sense, teaching myself to sing. That I just like feel so comfortable to sing there.
Yeah. How did you learn to sing? Where did that come from?
Oh my God, you know what? It was. I think it's as innate as it could be.
Oh
I
yeah.
my mom has a really pretty voice.
Hmm.
My sister definitely is an above average singer, so there's a little bit of it in the family. My dad plays trumpet.
Oh,
Um, but it was like the second I could talk, I was singing, and I had
wow.
these little diaries and I was writing these little songs. And I was in competitive dance from a young age, but even in the
Hmm.
dance school, I would have what's called a song and dance solo. So I'd be on stage with my little microphone, and in every single play, every single talent show, it was like just from a young age. Like I remember being obsessed with Judy Garland from Somewhere
Oh
Over the Rainbow.
yeah.
I was like 5 or 6. So then that was my first sort of vocal
Hmm.
obsession. Yeah, it was just innate. I just loved to sing and I always sang. I never had music lessons or anything
That's
like that.
crazy.
Focused on other areas of study, I guess, until my undergrad. But yeah, it was just something I loved to do so much. I never stopped doing it. I'm always amazed when someone's like, "Oh yeah, I started singing 5 years ago." I'm like, it doesn't just come out of you like every second you're alive, you know?
Yeah, have you always been the type to sing? Like, I mean, even right now, you're just like peppering in little 5 second song sings, whatever.
Am
Uh,
I?
have you
No,
always been
I
doing
sing
that? Like as a
constantly.
bit?
Sorry?
You've always been doing that, like half as a bit, half as genuine, essentially?
You know what? I didn't realize I was doing it, and I think my mom does that. I think it is genuine, but I sing all around the house. Like it's very annoying. Like my sister would be like, "Shut." Yeah, my partner luckily is like very
Yeah.
just knows how
Use
loud I am. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, good. Oh, loud too, because the singing is one thing, but loud is another
it's all
thing.
around. It's
Oh, fantastic.
talking. Just he's here for it.
Okay, good. You need somebody like that, I think.
You do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I realize I actually don't have as much time as I thought. I have less time than normal, but
That's okay.
I got to get out of here around 1 basically. So we don't need to
No
rush,
problem.
but anyway, um I want to do you want to talk a bit about what we were talking about before we started, which was your album you're working on, or do you want to save that for later?
No, sure, we could talk about
Okay,
it.
yeah. So tell me about it.
So I'm working on my second full length folk record.
Hmm.
So my first one I put out in 2022, and that was very much like a pandemic home record. And I feel like I learned a lot from that process and I grew a lot from that process. And then I released a little EP in 2024, which if we want to talk about what I hate that I've done,
Okay,
come
that'll
back
come
to
up again,
that.
I'm sure. Cool.
And then, but I also learned a lot from that and pivoted again. So I feel I don't know about you, but we both were feeling pretty fucked up like the whole pandemic. And I feel sort of now I'm entering a period of like strength again for the first time in
Oh.
a while and stability. And so I feel the writing is coming from just a more confident place and a place where I'm more interested in my own exploration. I'm not like scared of it, if that makes sense.
Mm.
I think when I was less experienced and, being kind of a recovering perfectionist, I never really liked anything I put out, but I just put it out because I think it's important to finish things.
It is, yeah.
And that even like led into my process of like writing and editing the songs. Like to me, it was so far from perfect that like working hard on it would just like bring out what I hated about it more. And it was almost like emotionally a huge block to keep working on a single song rather than just like, it's good enough. Like, whereas
Oh.
now I feel so much more confident that I'm like, no, let's dig into this song. It's not just a fluke. Let's get your craft involved. Let's see what we can make more interesting. Let's see what you're really looking for, how to express yourself vocally.
Hmm.
I just feel like I don't know, I like myself more. So I'm more open to what's possible into my own process in a way. If that does that make sense to you?
That completely makes sense, but it makes me curious what led to the change. Like, why are you so confident in it? That's
Think it's
great, but
just experience. Like I won't say that I'm gonna love anything I put out. Like my
sure.
perfectionism, like when by the time I put this out, I'll probably be like, oh fuck, it sucks. Next one will be better. But I think it's just experience. I think especially when you're a bit of a perfectionist, or even in any art form where like it's really fucking embarrassing. Like you're just putting yourself out there constantly. You
Yeah.
just build that resilience to rejection
Yep.
and to anyone's opinion.
Apathy as well.
You gotta, yeah, it's sort of like very useful apathy. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do it. And
Hmm.
so doing that with a couple projects now that like I haven't necessarily thought were my best, it just gives me this sort of freedom. It's like, okay, well, let's try this. Let's try
Yeah.
this. Let's try this. We've done that. And I just don't feel as, I guess, self-conscious anymore after going through that process. Who was I talking to? I was reading something recently that's like, I think like for any artist, you're kind of like looking for some kind of expression that you're going to make, something that
Yeah.
feels true, feels like you've
Hmm.
gotten somewhere, feels like you've, reached something interesting. And I think sort of the work of your life is like looking for that piece of work that you're going to make, but you have to be brave enough to be seen as a work in progress when you haven't gotten there yet. You have to be brave
Yes.
enough to show you're not best work to help teach you enough to get to your better work.
Yes, growing in public feel very awkward
Exactly.
and makes you self-conscious or whatever. But that's an interesting angle. So you look at an artistic career because I think in retrospect we can look at an artistic career and go, "Oh, that was that person's magnum opus or whatever you would want to call it."
Mhm.
But are you that yeah, that's looking backwards after things have
Mhm.
happened and their career has settled. Are you in your career looking forward towards whatever that is and you think
Oh,
it'll be
yes.
one thing?
I don't know if it'll be one thing or just a place I get to where I feel I'm really
Like in control and
just sitting
something.
in my best potential, I
Yeah.
suppose,
Right,
which I
right.
don't feel yet. And I think that's okay. I'm still like very much learning.
Right. But confidently now, which is an important
So
next
I'm
step
more
to get towards
confident.
that, right? It sounds like.
Exactly. I'm humble and I'm taking it step by step and really just trying to
You're doing your daily gratitude, I'm sure.
no.
Yeah,
Fuck that.
I don't do that. I'm sure it's really helpful, but
I'm no, you know what? I have my moments. I'm definitely someone who I worked really hard on mindfulness and meditation in my
mhm.
20. So one thing I am quite good at is noticing when there's a good moment and lingering in it and appreciating it.
Share
So I
with the
think
audience, how do you do that?
part of it is like honing the skill of mindfulness to begin with so that you have space between feeling something, thinking it, and then noticing the thought you're having about it instead of
Hmm.
everything just kind of like blurring together, or like the second you're in a good moment, you're thinking of the next moment or thinking of something bad that's going to happen later.
Right.
So I think just honing mindfulness helps you be more present in any moment.
Hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, like I'll just have moments where I'm laughing my ass off with my friends, and I'm just someone who says it. I'll look around and be like, oh, I fucking love you guys. We're having the best time right now. Like, I'm so happy.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'll
That's a
say
good
that
quality, but that's a vulnerable quality, I think, too.
I'm, yeah, I'm very comfortable in vulnerability, I think, with myself and others.
Mm,
But, um, yeah, I think appreciating that is good for your mental health. I think so many
definitely.
times our brains can focus on the negative things that have happened, and that's been me as well. So that's kind of why I really make an effort to like imprint positivity into my memories in a way. That makes
Wow.
sense.
Yes, it makes sense. I'm only laughing
But
because
like
you're
Thich
like
Nhat Hanh,
grinning hugely, bordering on laughing. Is it just because you're feeling joy right now, or
and I'm like,
because you
yeah,
feel out on a limb, or why are you laughing?
I'm always a very smiley person. I think
Yeah.
it's yeah, I've just got a big old smile,
Okay.
Thich-
Okay.
but I just wanted to say this one thing about that is Thich Nhat Hanh, he basically says it better than I could, which is water the positive seeds.
Yeah, that's okay. That's nice. That's well said.
Something we can all do. But yeah, yeah, you should take a crack at this Joker smile. What's your biggest? Let me teach you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big for listeners, Julie has a sort of Julia Roberts type of smile, you know?
That is the biggest compliment ever.
Well, it's for like the biggest mouth ever.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's like we're toothy gals, and I love
Yes,
to
you're toothy
represent the
gals.
toothy gals up in here. We represent.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, well then let's get into it. I'm curious what your best gig memory is because you've played a variety.
Oh, my best gig.
Yeah, best gig memory. Yep.
Oh, that's such a good question. I think one that stands out was weirdly enough, it was another Unplugged North that just came into my mind, but it was at the new
Oh,
album combo.
yes. Okay. That's where they used to do it, right? For a long time.
Yeah. And it was a few years ago. And I don't know, it was just a really special one. I had gone to that venue a lot in my early 20s before it had shut down and been reconstructed. And it was,
Mm.
this historic venue. And my dad had
Hmm.
gone there. And then we thought it was gone forever. And then it came back. And the host was the previous host of North Americana, Sarah Burke, who was like an old family friend of
Yep.
mine. And so it was just
Cool.
like really nice and meaningful. And
Sarah Burke
I,
worked also for Indie 88, I think,
yeah, she
and now
did.
I've been following her podcast wise because she's doing it's called Women in Music, if I'm not
Women in
mistaken.
media.
Women in Media, and she has a podcast that's great. People should check that out.
She's amazing. Oh my God, what a radio voice. She's got
Yes.
such a good radio
Oh,
voice.
such a radio voice and just the right personality for all of that. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. But I haven't done a lot of like big shows or anything. So
Hmm.
for me, it's just moments where I felt really happy on stage and felt that the vibe was good and I loved who was there. And
Yeah.
I've definitely had some like backup gigs that meant a lot to me. Like singing backups for Mariel Buckley last year was a huge highlight just
Sure.
because
Talk about that.
her
Yeah.
record that she put out, it, it, it just that record got me through that winter. It was a really rough winter, and I had the album just essentially memorized from listening to it over and over and over. And then, yeah, I had met her in Vancouver because my friend Erin Goldstein had been touring with her. And I kind of threw it out there like, hey, if you ever need backups, I'm like a super fan, not to be creepy. But she actually was like, hey, yeah, why don't you jump on the Toronto show? And it was in some cases, I prefer singing backups than doing lead shows
Oh,
because singing harmonies is one of my strengths and one of my absolute favorite things to do. And singing in harmony with other musicians is just one of the most beautiful feelings I have ever on stage.
yeah.
And, the odd time I can afford to have a full band and have a backup singer, it's fantastic. But a lot of times I'm doing like a one piece or a two-piece show and singing on my own. So just anytime
Exactly.
I get to sing with other people, yeah, like that one of those singles I put out a few months ago, Lighthouse with
Mm-hmm.
Adina V and Zachary Elliott. That was just
Yeah.
so nice. 3-part harmonies, start to finish. I was just like, oh, we need to be Dixie Chicks. This is our new band.
The Chicks, excuse me.
Oh, right. Oh my
They've
God.
changed. Yeah.
Yeah, rightly
It's
so.
hard to break that habit though. It's a very memorable name.
I know,
I
I
mean,
know.
rightly so that they changed it, but it's a very memorable
Exactly.
name for sure, for sure. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's an interesting take on the question though. That maybe some of your favorite gigs have been as a backing vocalist or like a harmonizing vocalist.
Truly,
Where
like
did
it's
you
just
play with Marielle Buckley? Where did you
it was at
guys
the
perform?
Rivoli.
Oh, okay. Sorry if you said that. I missed that.
No, I didn't, but
Oh, okay.
Mariel
The
like
Rivoli.
absolutely packed it. And yeah, I really just love singing harmonies. I'm doing a backup gig next week. And I mean, there's also the part where like there's less pressure
Yeah,
on you.
exactly. That's pretty
But
nice.
I think also I have a voice that lends itself very well to like gentle harmonies and that tone.
Yes.
So I love that balance of adding just enough, not too much, and thinking more about like how it's all coming together in the room rather it being like about me, you know?
Yes, totally,
That's
totally.
just like such a valuable experience as a singer that, yeah, I just love it.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I want to hear about your worst gig then.
My worst gig. Oh my God. Well, I've played to empty rooms more times than I can count. So how can I even say worse?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if anything like chaotic as fuck ever happened on stage. In some way, I had a rough gig, my album release for my last record. I did it at Horseshoe.
Oh no.
And the only reason it felt so rough was because I had just moved back from BC, where I was for 8 months,
Hmm.
and just didn't have the same music connections there, wasn't gigging nearly as much. I was just like very out of practice. My guitar playing is very rough and like very beginner. So I feel like if I'm not consistently gigging, it just feels
Right.
like rusty as. And so I had the most amazing band, I think, but it was just like I came home, I was in like all this emotional turmoil, going through a breakup, whatever, trying to get the band together, one rehearsal, get on stage. And so
Hmm.
it was really just that. I just felt out of practice. I felt rusty and I felt like more nervous
Yeah.
than I should have. So that's like in
Okay.
recent memory, it was probably just the worst I felt on stage.
Sure. That's tough that
Um,
it was the album release though.
eh, Whatever. I mean,
That's funny. Yeah.
luckily I don't take much to it all feels, not too high stakes.
Yeah, if it
And
just
yeah,
rolls
I
off
think
your
part of
back, that's great.
it does like that recovering perfectionism. It's like, and one thing when I have stage fright, I go, well, it's gonna go how it goes.
Yeah.
It's gonna go how.
When did you drop when did you become recovering from perfectionism? Like when did you realize it was actually impeding
Mhm.
you?
I think that journey started before I got deep into my music career. That journey started, it was having such an impact on my mental health from such a young age.
Hmm.
I was like really stressed about my grades and stuff as a kid and in high school. Like it was just bonkers. I would be staying in from parties, writing a paper, going to dance class, doing this. And
Wow.
um, I, I remember going to my first couple of years of university and I was at U of T and I'd be sitting there with like horrific stomach aches, like waiting to get my papers back. But then I'd get it back and it would be an A and I'd be like, it still wasn't good enough. I'm
Oh
rereading it back. I'm
God.
like, this is garbage. It was just really, and then this is quite personal, but like, yeah, I had an eating disorder. And the perfectionism really is always, I think, part of that. And so it was
Yes,
something
I
that in
see.
therapy it was almost like life threatening to sort of deal with this perfectionism. And why do you feel you have to earn approval and care and love and appreciation, just like that process of learning that like you and every human are worthy of love and acceptance and care before you do a single thing, like
Hmm.
whoever you are. And yeah, in my like 20-year-old self, that was like bad grades and my body changing from what it was in high school, which is like completely fucking fine. Obviously my views on body image have evolved immensely since then.
Hmm.
um but that's when I sort of started. And then it was interesting because when I got into my music career, like music wasn't anything I had really like, of course, I'm a bit of a perfectionist with my voice. I don't want to hit like any tiny flat note or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
But my perfectionism had always been primarily focused on school. Like I was so school focused to
Mm.
the point where music was taking a back seat in my life till I was like 25. So it was almost like music was this thing that was free of that in a way. Like I'm almost glad I didn't study it because music was always this thing that was just me in my room.
Yes, I feel the same way. I
Really?
never, yeah, I never studied it. But if you wouldn't mind, I am curious how the perfectionism, and obviously we can edit this out. It's up to you.
Mhm.
How the perfectionism was part of the eating disorder. Like,
Mm.
is it perfectionism in that you were talking about how, okay, the grade isn't good enough, so maybe you'll similarly, do you feel, was it like about feeling like you deserved or didn't deserve food, or what was the deal?
It was more that I didn't deserve love unless I looked that way.
Oh, okay, okay. So it was all for the like
There was
outer
just a
value
deep
of the image.
self-esteem issue
Okay.
underneath everything where I felt I was a piece of shit that didn't deserve. Yeah, no, it's crazy to think back, but I had some serious trauma, like
Uh,
really bad trauma from my high school years.
okay.
And it was just this feeling that I had to earn acceptance and love. I had to earn it. And unfortunately, one of those images we give to young girls is that like quote unquote this is the perfect body, right? And
Especially, I mean, it's happened forever, but especially at that time, it was like the ultra, it was like the heroin chic. I'm using air
oh,
quotes. Look,
yes, and there was
yeah,
no messages to even counter that. It was 2008 when I graduated high school, and my disordered eating started when I was 12, so that's back
right,
2002.
right.
And so sorry, what was the question? I got lost.
I guess no, it's okay. I guess the question was
Oh, but how
just,
did that perfectionism come? Yeah, so and
yeah,
basically from a young age, and this is also part of like patriarchy, I got way too much weird attention on my looks out of it from childhood.
gotcha.
And that was very fucked up. Like I did, I was scouted on the street by grown men for modeling and stuff like that. And I was like 14, 15. I was like, sure, cool, like sounds great. Sure. And they're like, oh yeah, you have to lose even more weight, even though you're already
Jeez.
underweight for your age. And then, they have you in a room with a 45-year-old photographer, they have you in a lingerie, and then they're all going and picking apart how your body looks after.
Are you to
And
speaking hypothetically, or these were
no, this is what
experiences you
happened to
had?
me. This is what
Oh,
happened. Yeah.
wow.
And then not to mention, I was like a very serious dancer. I wasn't necessarily the greatest, but I was serious about it and doing a lot of hours. And your dance teachers are just like, don't eat this, don't eat that. You're not going to fit in your costumes. Go home, do your sit-ups. You can't have a solo if this is your weight. Like it was just
Whoa.
so overt, like
I
from
didn't
so,
know it would be that overt. Yeah, that's what's
oh yeah.
surprising.
And
Wow.
even like, the really shitty boyfriend I had in high school was very clear if I gained weight, like it was like the body was so like it's kind of no wonder a young girl would feel that way,
Yeah.
right? Like it's kind of
Jeez.
amazing if you grow up and somehow don't feel that way. So I mean, getting into I studied at U of T English literature and women and gender studies. And so I'm very fortunate that I found gender studies at that age because it was, yeah,
Mm,
2009 when I started. And we weren't really in the body positivity movement at large
no.
yet, not to even talk about how that's completely gone backwards. And we've reached this Ozempic ED place again, and the
Yes.
TikTokification of beauty and the filters. And like, we can't even go there. Like, I didn't even think the industry could get more toxic. But at the time, it gave me a really safe place and community to
hmm
analyze these issues. And it really, and I was in like serious therapy. I was in really like crazy intense therapy from age, yeah, 19, 20, because my mom recognized how serious things were. And so I was able to really deconstruct that. And I spent like a lot of my 20s dealing with a lot of these like really serious issues that I think is part of the why I feel I'm really kind of growing up now in my
Huh.
30s, just in a better place with my self-esteem and my creative freedom. And I think all those things had to kind of be healed, you
Well, that's
know?
amazing. Yeah, you've clearly done like a lot of work and you're very
Thank
sort of
you.
knowledgeable, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. It seems like.
I'm definitely
Um,
in tune with, yeah, my own experience. And,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I feel a little embarrassed. I mean, yeah, it's so vulnerable talking about the ED, but it's important because like so many people deal with it. And
Yeah, and it's up to you. If you tell me later after we finish the podcast you want me to edit it out, that's okay. Like
no,
whatever.
I'm okay with it. And that's also just having come full circle from it and been one of the small statistic that fully recovers. And it's one of my greatest accomplishments in life, you know?
Oh, well, actually, and like you're doing now, you're choosing to keep it into the podcast. That actually might be helpful at a time like this when you're pointing out we've actually gone backwards and are in the, or, yeah, we're moving backwards in terms of body positivity, kind of. It's very bizarre that once Ozempic became like There was just this tipping point where people went, okay, yeah, fuck it, everybody's doing it.
It was like, oh yeah, we're not over this, are we?
No,
Just this idea of
take
thinness.
one shot and then you get thinner is
It's
uh
just awful. I saw an
it's
interesting post today about it. Sorry to, oh my gosh, sorry to cut you off.
no, it's okay.
But she wrote that uh what was it? Sorry. Um oh yeah, because part of she was criticizing the body positivity movement, basically saying that we never really got to body neutrality as a culture. We got to like we were still, oh, curves are beautiful. This is beautiful. All bodies are beautiful. It's like, well, body neutrality is more like, I don't need to be like fuckable to you. Like my body is just a body and like who cares what it looks like? And like
Right.
you can just treat people well. Like they don't have to be beautiful to you.
Right.
Like
Saying
it doesn't
everybody is
matter.
beautiful is not a far enough step in
Like
the
why
right
is beauty
direction.
important
Right,
for
right, right.
anyone? Who fucking cares? Like, and so yeah, if we can get towards body neutrality, maybe we wouldn't still be in this realm, but we're still in this realm where like beauty is this currency, and
Yeah.
that's a damaging thing.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. It is da very damaging. I think that might last forever though.
I wonder, yeah, I mean, in the sense of like the world and nature and art and architecture, beauty is important. But what we
Yeah.
consider beautiful in humans is so like it
Changing.
fluctuates
Yeah,
and then
that's
we
true. That's
obsess.
true.
Like it fluctuates and then we obsess, and then it fluctuates and then we obsess, and we make you buy your way into it, and we tell you
Yeah.
you're wrong if you're not part of it. So I don't think there's like an objective human beauty
No,
the way
you're
that
definitely
nature.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You're definitely right. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, it's good that we talked about it then, I guess. And
definitely.
thank you for
It's
sharing it.
oh, my pleasure. I always think I'd love to go back to a gender studies program now because of the new developments in like the beauty industrial complex. I'm
Yeah.
so interested, you know.
It sounds like it, yeah. And it's relevant to you. I mean, it makes sense. Why would, relevant
It
to you
doesn't
because of your past
matter.
experiences, I mean.
Yeah, and just on a cultural level, I feel a lot of like care for the younger generation, and I
Hmm.
feel anxious for young people that are growing up trying to sort through this shit without any sort of lens. It's like, oh man, like I'm worried about the kids basically.
Yeah, it can't be easy to be a kid in high school. I mean, at all right now, but in high school with social media and stuff, I can't. Like we had social media, but it wasn't how it is now. It seems
Oh
insane.
no. We were like, let's get on MSN Messenger. Hi, friend. Sup?
Yeah, sup, NMU. Yeah,
NMU. Okay, I
yeah.
gotta get off the computer. My dad needs the phone.
Yeah, yeah. G2G. But yeah, that's
GTG.
such TTYL. Wow, that's so true. Oh my God, I feel so old. Um,
I love it. Oh my God.
signing out and then signing in to see if you're
To
crushed.
see if they notice.
Yeah, exactly. Classic. I mean, truly.
So good.
Um, okay, well let's keep the positivity. Let's talk about what you think is your best song that you've put
Oh,
out.
my best song. Oh goodness.
Yes.
Um,
Whatever that
whew,
means to you, you know?
that's so interesting. This is me struggling to think any of my songs are great right now. You're watching it happen in real time. I'm like, are any of them? Um,
Aw.
I think I think Ghost um might be my best one to date
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how I feel about just the songwriting and stuff.
Okay.
Writing and stuff. Uh, I feel it's one of those songs where, like, there's some songs that you play over and over for a while, and you're like, okay, I can't stand this. Like,
Yes.
I got to switch it up, or like this line feels cheesy to me now, or I can't relate to this anymore. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. I don't really grow out of that song, so I feel like I hit something at least that felt really true for me that still feels true.
Totally. I
So
love that's a good way to measure that, I think.
yeah. So in that way, I think it's my best. And you know what's so funny is the little finger picking I did and the way
Hmm.
that song starts is a little finger picking thing I wrote when I was 18.
Some of that
Um,
stuff stays with you.
and I brought it back. Yeah, so
Wow, yeah.
that's really interesting too.
That is
Um,
interesting. Why did you did that come after writing the rest of the song? You added the intro, or did the intro come and then
no,
you
it just
okay.
popped out of me. It did that little whatever the first couple chords where
Yeah.
it just must have just come out of my memory bank, and I started and but I sang a new song over it because when I was
Yes, I
18
see.
I wrote a song totally different. But
Oh.
then yeah, it was like the similar, almost the same chords and picking pattern and just wrote a whole new song over it. And I mean, that connects to the meaning of the song too, sort of. It's a bit of a look back. I'm trying to, how do I say it without sounding
Like
like such a huge,
like
it's a bit of a
nostalgia?
retrospective. No, like it sort of looks back at a bit of my journey in that way from sort of
Okay.
that time. So it's kind of meta in like a good way.
I wish this was a video podcast so people could see the acting you're doing along with these voices.
I am very, oh God. I always get called out for also my hand. You can't
Yeah,
see a lot of hand work,
you
but I do.
gesticulate a lot, you
There's a
know.
lot of gesticulating. Yeah,
Yes,
wild.
yeah, yeah. That's too funny. Well,
Um,
so why is that songwriting style one that, or sorry, why is the songwriting in that song something that has stuck with you? Other than what you said about the finger picking, which makes sense.
hmm. I think it blends the line well
Hmm.
between being sort of just straightforward and plain spoken with some nice, like I feel so cringe trying to compliment myself in any way. I'm like
No, no,
really
no, no.
wrestling through it.
Compliment
But
yourself because it's going to be like a little shield from the hate for yourself you're going to give in the next answer.
you're so right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think okay. So, well, I studied English literature and I was obsessed with poetry my whole life. I used to write poetry, and so I went through this thing of feeling like songwriting was different than writing poetry, and I'd approach it differently and approach it differently. I feel like this song blended those two worlds in
Oh,
a way that feels good for me. It wasn't too drenched in metaphor to the point where it's like so pretentious.
yeah.
It wasn't too plain spoken where I feel like there's no layers or symbolisms. I think it blended the line really nicely between being simple and being a little more complex, I guess.
And do you, I guess, implied in that answer is, and tell me if you agree, poetry is in general considered the more complex one, and then lyrics can be slightly more straight ahead. Is that what you're kind of saying?
I think in general, if we look at like all the songs that have ever been written, all the poetry that's ever
Super
been sung,
generalizing. Yeah.
yeah, if we can do look really generally, I find that poetry, a lot of the best songs sound like someone talking and having a simple conversation.
Yeah,
But then
you're
there's
right.
some poems where, especially just me coming from my academic background, like you're digging into it and finding 16 layers of references as to why this word was chosen and why this means this. And it's just, so I think I was like coming at it a little pretentious at first, like trying to implement all my
Uh,
education stuff. And I had to do this whole thing where I was like, okay, forget it. What if I was just telling my friend how I felt and approach songwriting
yes.
that way? And then I had to kind of, okay, what if I blend it together? But I don't want to do it in a contrived way. So all these
Yes.
little, I'm sure you've been through such a similar process where you're just trying to find the right word and the right thing, and it's honest, but
Contrived is basically where you don't want to be. Yeah, I'd rather be anywhere
exactly,
else than it seeming contrived. Uh,
exactly.
I want to briefly talk a bit more about poetry. That's interesting that you did a lot of work with that in
Mm.
school. Like, who are some poets that you would throw out that like you like
Oh
or
man,
people should check out? Okay.
Joy Harjo is an amazing poet. Czesław Milosz was a poet that was introduced to me by a first year poetry teacher I had. I was so fortunate. I was in this program at U of T, and the teacher was a man named Albert Moritz, who's a Giller Prize winning poet.
Oh, wow.
And so the works he showed me like stayed with me for life. And one poem he showed us was Winter by Czesław Milosz.
Hmm.
He also showed us this beautiful 50-page poem called Sunstone by Octavio Paz. So those were two that really stuck from with me from him.
Is this a
All his
mix of like modern or older poets, or are they all
that would be
mostly
more
modern?
I would say modern, like after the 50s and
Yeah,
60s.
right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Sylvia Plath is an all-time
Uh-huh.
favorite. So cliche. I'm so Julia Stiles and 10 Things I Hate About You. Like Sylvia Plath and Tofu and Bikini Kill. And
Yeah, that's true. You are a lot
I'm
like
so,
her.
I know. I watched that movie. I'm like, no, I'm so attacked. Every single thing she has is like an alt girl.
You know what? Actually, you're somewhere between her and Heath Ledger in that movie.
Oh, I appreciate
You have
that.
the vibes
Yeah,
of
she's a
both,
little
I
more
think.
out there, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. She's
I'm not introverted.
no, that exactly. Actually, that's the best way to say it. You're like the extroverted version of Julia Stiles for
Exactly.
doing that.
But I do, yeah, I fell in love with Sylvia Plath in high school.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah.
But I would say,
I
yeah,
haven't read
Joy.
her poetry, but I've read The Bell Jar, which is a classic, I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. The poetry is fantastic. Yeah, I feel like I'm blanking right now. I have so many books of poetry on my shelf.
No, I mean, you already listed three or four. It's fair
Yeah,
enough,
I'll
you know?
definitely send you some more stuff, but
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Mhm.
interesting. No, I love hearing that. Yeah, I've read a bit of poetry, but it's all like, it's like when you enter a new genre of music you're going to try, so you listen to the most popular people it would be like you've never heard pop before, so where do you start? And you go to like
Yes.
Michael Jackson or something, or
And a lot of
Beyonce.
poetry like almost needs a teacher. You almost need to be guided through it
I
to
think
get,
so, because
yeah,
otherwise you just go, yeah, this is really pretty. And you don't see
exactly.
more into it, but anyway, like I'm a cliche. I liked Dylan Thomas poems and
Oh, of
stuff
course. I
like
mean,
that,
yeah.
sad Irish stuff basically.
Oh, hell yeah. That
Yeah.
shit slaps though, for real.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, hey, Irish people are great at
They
poetry,
know what's
comedy,
up and
music.
tragic fiction. And
Yes, exactly.
I had a poetry prof that, oh my God. I just used to tell him, I'm like, I know something's good in the poem where I feel a little bit like I'm gonna puke. I feel like it's
Wow,
like with
yeah.
every piece of art, like your stomach turns a little bit. And
Yes.
I think you don't have to understand the poem right away, but you're like, something's there. Let me
Right.
begin to investigate why.
I
And then you
agree.
kind
If
of,
if
yeah.
you like bump on something, you're like, "Oh, okay, why did that
Yeah.
pique my interest?"
Whether it's a visual, piece of art or anything, you're like, oh, like you feel that physical, something has
Yeah,
moved in me. And
I
so like I
agree.
don't have to understand why right away.
What's a poem that stuck out? I mean, you already listed some, but like what's a
Mm.
poem that makes you think of that when that happened, when your stomach turned?
The first one that comes to mind is The Moon and the Yew Tree by Sylvia Plath.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I gotta
and I
check
won't,
that out.
yeah, it's like I just bring out a candle and I start reciting it. My cloak comes on and like
Exactly. Well, that would be
comes
pretty
natural.
in character thing.
I'll send it to you after, absolutely. But you know what? I haven't been engaged in poetry in so long. So this conversation's so nice because I've got these books on the shelf that I haven't really, new poetry books I was ambitious to
Oh,
get but haven't dug into yet.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I
that's
need to, yeah,
classic.
honor that.
And then the
Yeah.
books just like mock you from the nightstand, and you're like, I
They mock
know.
me. I
Yeah.
know. There's a really good book I'm reading though. This has been like I feel like popular around Toronto and all the shop windows. It's called Never Whistle at Night. You might
I
have
think,
seen it.
yeah, I think I can picture the cup. What's the
Yeah, it's like a
cover?
black cover with all these like flowers around it, and it's an anthology of indigenous horror stories, and it is the
Ooh,
best thing I've read in so long. So yeah,
interesting. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely. Okay, good. We've got some
I'm
homework for the
and
listeners
for
and
people
myself.
that all of our attention spans are totally ruined by TikTok, it's good to it's short stories are great. You're like, okay, I'll
Right, I
read one
love that.
story. I'll read one
Yeah.
story. You could do that,
Huh?
So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
highly
Okay.
recommend that one.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. Nice. I
Yeah.
always love more local stuff. Like everybody knows
Yeah,
super famous books because they'll just be in the news or you'll just hear about them or whatever. Yeah.
exactly. The
Okay.
Giller Prize, like it's
Yeah,
always
or
a good
those.
place to look. But then, Eden Robinson is probably my favorite modern fiction writer. She's an Indigenous Canadian woman.
Okay. What did she write?
I think Indigenous Canadian fiction is just like leading the way. There's a book of hers called Monkey Beach, but she's written a lot. There's a trilogy she wrote that I read. I think it's called The Trickster. I think it's a trilogy.
Okay.
But it's almost like it's magical realism, but then the
Hmm.
magical realism is informed by indigenous folklore. So it's just
Right.
unbelievable.
I love magical realism. I mean, whatever. Budgets are an issue in general in Canada, but I wish there was more magical realism film made in Canada because you see, like,
So true.
to me, for example, like magical realism, Mexican cinema are killing it. It's like they do it so well. Every year they have a great magical
Right.
realism movie, and because some of their culture, I guess, like I'm going way into the deep end. I might have to edit this out. I don't
No,
know what
this
I'm
is
talking
great. I'm
about.
saying I'll send you a couple poems. You send me some of those films
Okay,
because
yeah, sure.
that's up my alley.
Yeah, it's
We'll do
cool.
a
It's
little art exchange.
exactly a little art exchange. Okay, all right. I'll get back on track. To the worst song, Julie. What do you think is
The
your worst
worst. It's like,
song?
yeah, it's like, what do I pick? They all say, no,
Yeah.
I'm so mean. Oh my God.
As long
But
as it's about yourself, then that's
as
fine.
long as it's about myself, I'm so nice to everybody else. Um, but in terms of the worst, it's interesting because yeah, I have a few songs on the last album I think are a little cheesy. But My last little EP I put out in 2024, and this has nothing to my producer did a beautiful job. Nick,
Hmm.
he's unbelievable. He did a beautiful job on it. This is like nothing about him. It's just me and my
Of
songwriting, just
course, of
what I
course.
came up with. I think at the time it was something that almost like I barfed out. Like I kind of barfed that EP out. It was just emotional regurgitation. It wasn't an intentional project. I was going through some shit, and those were the four songs that I kind of wrote during that. And I think yeah, so looking back at it, even when I was releasing it, I think part of hating it was it just felt like a bit too vulnerable to the point where it was like icky. And
Hmm.
another
Okay.
is just like I don't think in crafting the songs there was any sort of real like intention on my part. It just they were very spur of the moment. They just kind of fell out. Don't know if I really like them, but I felt that I would release them just because again, in a practice
You're
against
trying to do that.
perfectionism,
Yep.
let's put
Yep.
out work that's not my best. And also because maybe in what I was expressing, there may be one person who resonates with that. And so give it to that one person. I don't care,
Totally.
like if even one person is like, yeah, I feel seen and I felt what you felt because it was honest. Like it
Yeah.
was honest. So yeah, if one person likes it, let them have it. But I feel the record as a whole, it's a little boring. I don't think it's my best writing, and I'm kind of just like not into it. But I'm not taking it down yet.
No, don't take it down. Don't take it down. Well, what's
That's what
this?
my friends.
What'd you say?
Well, that's what my friend said. Just leave it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, you should just leave it. But yeah, well, partially for this podcast to work, you got to leave at least whatever song you specifically choose. Because
Exactly.
you're talking more about the album right now, but what's the specific song?
So there's four songs.
Because it's the EP, right, that you're
It's the
referring to?
EP.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the song I like the least is probably Break.
Okay.
And weirdly, it's a song that was the hardest and most emotional to write. And it got something disgusting like out of me. I don't know how to describe it. Like it got something out that I needed to get out that feels good in the sense that I think it's the last time I'll revisit that subject.
Ah.
But as a song, I find it really tough to listen to. I think the chord progression sucks. I think it's boring. I think I think it doesn't flow the way it could. Like I just have a lot of problems with the song structurally, but I'm
Right,
glad
right.
it came out of me just as an emotional practice. Like again, like
Yes.
look at music is not something that's like you don't make it for other people. You make it because it just has to come out of you. So I got something out of me I needed to get out, but I don't like the song.
I love that. That's good. That's a really healthy take, I think, on
Thank
music.
you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like I don't have any of that sort of care for people to like it. I don't really
But and
expect.
yet you're smart enough uh career-wise to submit these songs still to like Sirius and stuff like that. I think that's something
Yeah,
legitimately people should learn from.
yeah.
It's
I'm
like
trying to make a living. I'm not
exactly.
trying to be a pop star. I'm trying to make a living and pay my rent and do what I love to do. That's it.
And being chosen is Patrick is awesome. And if you're chosen, I feel like it's almost like winning a lottery ticket and
To get on Serious,
to
hell
get on
yeah,
Sirius.
hell yeah,
And the only way to win the lottery is to play the lottery. You know what I mean? You got to submit.
yeah. If
Yeah.
we can be, there are so many amazing working class musicians in this city, and it's such a beautiful fabric of the community.
An
And
abundance. An
yeah,
abundance.
and it's like if we can pay our bills and do music, I feel like that's all a lot of us want.
Yes. Or we're gonna
Mhm.
leave, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I can't because my family's here.
Yeah, I know. I can't either. Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I hope you feel good. We're at the end of the podcast.
Oh, I feel great. I think you asked such incredible questions, such insightful questions. Like that was so fun.
Oh,
And you really
okay.
made me think about so many things. And yeah, I feel inspired. I want to go read some poetry.
Good, good. Okay. Well, at the end, I sorry, I shouldn't have said that we ended already because I usually have people say, well, I can edit that or whatever. I don't know. I keep
That's
saying edit.
okay.
That was very nice of you to say. I usually have the guests say at the end their name again, if they have a band, but it's you, and the worst song choice. So would you just say that?
So my name is Julie Title. I also have a low-key band I'm developing called Shutterbug. Okay, but
Yes,
don't
I
put it
wanted
in the
to ask
tag. It's
about
the
that.
tag. Oh,
Oh,
do
don't
you
put that
still
in the
want
tag.
to?
Yeah, we can
Oh,
still talk about it.
you can put it in the tag. There's just like not much happening with it yet, but It's just, yeah, the project has gone a little bit to all of our back burners, but we're hoping to pick things up again soon. But it's an all alternative rock band I'm developing, and we have 2 songs out, and we have an EP kind of in the works. So yeah,
Sweet,
it's
that's
called
exciting.
Shutterbug.
Okay,
Yeah.
Shutterbug. Yeah, people go check that out as well as Julie Title's music herself. So yeah, sorry, lead us out again. Say your Julie Title and your worst
Okay.
song is.
I'm Julie Title, and my worst song is Break.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. No, I thought
Thank
this.
you so
Okay,
much.
now it'll
What would you bet me? Even though it's all the same, what could be different about what we could never change? Don't get me out of bed for less than bliss, or to bring me flowers. Yeah, that was cute, you gave me a kiss, you were so obsessed, and I'm always depressed now. And I didn't want anybody, and I never wanted to be kept around. Oh, did you break anybody else? How many ways are there to say that I hate you and I blame you? And maybe that's okay. If the body is sacred and this body is mine, I've tried out forgiveness, I'm letting it slide.